Good evening, guys, and welcome back to another Train Sim World 4 video. In this one, we are going to take a trip along the Cajon Pass. We're going to go from the summit. We're going to do a scenario called Manifest Madness, where we go from the summit all the way down the steep side. And this video is very much being done as a tutorial, as best I can, a tutorial on the way I control the brakes and the way I control the locomotive and all the cars coming down the pass, what system I use for keeping everything under control. And I'm doing this off the back of a conversation on a Facebook group where somebody asked for help, and I thought, you know what, this is actually a video that I've been meaning to make for a long time. Wouldn't have probably chose to do it in this locomotive, doing this particular thing, but hey, this is the one that there were issues with, that he was struggling with, so this is the one that we're going to do. Anyway, let's jump in, because it does actually take a while to get going. So we'll jump in. Now, what I'm going to do, the way I'm going to do this, is I'm going to walk you through it step by step, how I do it. I'm not claiming to be an expert, okay? All I'm going to do is show you the method that I personally use and what works for me. Now, we do get a little bit of a tutorial run at the start of this, because it tells us to do certain things. So we'll wait for this. So welcome to the summit. And we're going to ride it down. So our first job is to jump into the summit. Now, I'm not going to put any of the safety systems on in this. If you want to turn your alerter on, go for it. I'm going to keep that off just because of the nature of doing this video as a tutorial. I don't want to be interrupted by it when I'm trying to talk to you, etc. So we're going to leave it out of it. No safety systems. I would normally have them on, but not for this one. Right, let's turn on our fuel pump, fuel generator, and get this one on, the engine running. Let's reverse a handle in. Yeah, of course, we're going to need that. And we're going to come over to our more options and our operator controls. And we're going to basically hit this and this to pop these in, and then we can go back. Now, we're going to release the automatic brakes just now. And this is going to begin the long process of all of this happening. These chambers filling up, the rear, the cars, this is your... this is the rear of the train, and this is hopefully going to drop down as well. We can speed that along a little bit by hitting this to drain that off, which is going to speed that along. And all I'm doing here to do that, sorry, I should have shown you that, is this independent brake. We're hitting bail off, we're pulling that back, and you're going to use this a little bit on our journey down. Now, the one thing that we don't get shown here, let's pop our headlights on, is quite an important thing, and it doesn't tell us. It says, now get moving, so let's apply some power. Now for this, I'm going to jump outside, and I want you to listen. If I apply some power here, put the power up to 3, that's what I would recommend to get yourself going, 2 or 3, you can hear the revs being added. But there is this loco at the rear of the train, and at the moment it's doing nothing. The reason it's doing nothing, and these two are, is because we haven't pressed an important button in the cockpit. So we're going to jump back inside, and we're going to hit this button here, this banking com button. Make sure that's on, right? Because when you're using your engines and your direct braking, that's going to use that back car along the way. So if we jump back outside now and pop it up to 4 here, You can hear these ones revving up. We jump to the back. You can also hear this one revving up as well. Okay, let's pop that back to 3. And that's what you need. You need all of them working. I'm not quite sure why, when you're taken through everything in this at the startup session here, why you're not told to press that button. No idea. But anyway, you do need to press that to give yourself the extras. Now, while we're waiting on this loco moving, it's not going to move really till more of these brakes at the rear release. Okay, but basically what we've done is we've set up and we've applied a throttle of 3 to get going. Now what I'm going to show you here is my method. I'm going to do a dry run while we're not moving, and I'm going to try and do it in a way that you can see everything that I'm doing. Okay, so I'm going to position my camera here. Now normally when we do this on our way down the pass, we'll have our direct brakes not only set up but on, and we'll be halfway along normally. Okay, maybe even all the way along. And what we're doing is when our direct brakes just aren't giving us enough to slow us down, we need to use some of our automatic brake. And our automatic brake is going to drop these 2 numbers, but it's also going to increase this number, the brake chamber, the brake cylinder chambers, I think these are. But we don't want anything in there. So what you do, let's watch this. We get where we can see everything. That's about perfect. I would say for me, I add brakes till they're at about 25-ish%, and that should drop these 2 numbers to about 79. Okay, and that's where I want it. Once I've got these 2 numbers to 79, you can see we've got 21 here. We've got air in the chambers that we do not want. I'm going to bail that off. I'm going to drop that all the way to 0. And that is our setup. This will be good enough for you to run this from the top of the Cajon Pass all the way to the bottom. And now all we do is use our dynamic brake along the way to help us. Okay? Now I did that fairly slowly there. What you've got to remember is our dynamic brakes will be in operation when we do that. And when we do that, the dynamic brakes will stop working until you've bailed off this. So you need to do that relatively quickly. I'm going to release this just now, just so we can get going. Yeah, we'll be going soon. As soon as this gets up to the mid-70s, this number here, we will start moving. Enough of the brakes will have been released. Ultimately, what we're looking is for this number to be at 90, this one to be at 90, and this to be as close to 90 as we can get it, and we want to keep this at 0. When you bail this off, you do not release these. Okay, I'm going to walk you through that again one more time. Dynamic brake would be on and running. I'm going to do it a bit quicker this time. I'm going to add this to about 25%. I'm going to watch those numbers. As soon as those numbers hit 79 or 80, I'm bailing out or bailing off. And I'm watching that number drop to 0, and now I'm fine. Everything is good. I do not release this. I'm going to release it just now because I actually want to move and get going. Now, we'll see this in action as we go down. The next thing we need to have a talk about is, we're moving, not quite yet, we should be in a minute, is our optimal speed for using our dynamic brake. So your dynamic brake works best between 10 mile an hour and 30 mile an hour. If you go over 30 mile an hour, you're going to struggle. Okay, keep it under 30. I would recommend, especially for your first run down, keeping it around about 20. I tend to keep it around about 25 to 30. As you get better at using this system, you'll develop ways of knowing how much pressure you need in the chambers for what speed you want to go at. Bearing in mind that if you go over 30, it gets tougher, but it can be done. You just need to add more pressure, drop these numbers a bit further down. We should get moving any second, I would think. Let's just pop that down and reapply some. Try and get us nudging along. Yeah, we should be going in a minute. Just give it a second. It's usually when this gets to about 76, 77 that we'll start to see this tick up. I hope. There we go, 76. Oh, there we go. It's trying. There we go. I don't want to add any more power just now. Remember, we are pulling a humongous weight here. Absolutely monstrous weight that we're pulling. And we are still on a hill. We're on a gradient, uphill. Right, so yeah. Once we get round this corner, which is where the downhill starts, the downward gradient starts, we are then going to release the throttle and start setting up our dynamic brakes. And then I'll show you it in action as we go down and how I keep control. Now, I use all the keyboard keys for this, but I will try and do it not using the keyboard keys so you can actually see what levers I'm using where. Okay? Not something I've ever done before, but we'll try it. We'll see how it goes. So my goal for this video is going to be to keep my speed between 20 and 25 miles an hour. Somewhere around about the 23 mark is where I'll be happiest. And I genuinely think for your first trip down the pass, that's where you should keep it. And like I said earlier, the more you play about with it and the more you do it, the better you'll get at it and the better you'll know at feeling your train. Ooh, the other thing we do need to talk about is that this is all about momentum. Okay, as the speed starts to generate, that's a lot of momentum. You're trying to balance that momentum. You don't want too much forward force. So even if I want to be at, say, 25 mile an hour and I'm at 18 like I am just now, or 19, and my whole train is on the downhill, if I go 19, 20, 21, 22 in the space of about 15 seconds, that's a lot of momentum building up. You can't let the train get that much momentum, because once that momentum kicks in, it's very hard to fight back against it. Do not let too much forward momentum build up, because you'll just lose control. It's so easy to lose control of this. It really is. Now, I'm aware of my speed here. So where are we at? We're at throttle 3. I'm just going to drop that back actually to throttle 1 at the moment. Whilst I am on a downward gradient here, and I'm aware I'm on a downward gradient, what we do have to remember is that the back end of our train is not. The back end of our train is still climbing the hill. But the more and more train that comes around that corner, let's just turn the throttle off. The more and more train that comes around that corner, the more and more weight that is going to build up. Right, I'm going to set my dynamic brakes up. And I'm waiting for it to say set up here. It's supposed to take about 10 seconds, but it pretty much happens straight away on this loco. Now I'm at 26. I'm already faster than I want to be, but I know that my the back end of this loco is still on the other side. So I'm just going to whack this right up, and you'll see this go up here. This is the pressure being applied. I'm going to pump that back under 25 and then drop it down to about 4. And I would expect us to still drop here. And I'm going to get my camera in the position I want it for doing what we did at the top of the hill. Because we are getting steep. Our gradient is at 2.2 now. I am at dynamic brakes of 4. Okay. And we are okay at the moment. We're managing to keep control at the moment. Let's drop it down a bit, see what happens. Remember, more and more of that train is now building up behind us. It's all coming over the top of that hill, and the weight piles up really quick. These numbers are good. Remember, I'm trying to get these two numbers to 79-ish, 79.80, and this one back to 0 as quickly as I can, because these dynamic brakes will stop working when I do this. So let's put the dynamic brakes up to 5. Let's actually just pop the dynamic brakes right up. Here we go. We're going to go for it. We're going to pop this up to 25-ish%. As soon as those numbers hit 79, I'm bailing out, bailing off. And I'm watching that number in the brake cylinder drop down to 0. Now, this will come back online. This stays at 79. We just keep this now. This is going to make us slow down here. I'm watching my speed. Ooh, we've got somebody passing us. So as our speed drops, I'm about to use the wrong lever. I'm going to drop that back. Drop it back to 4. And now it's just maintaining this speed. I'm just going to add and release dynamic brakes all the way down, trying to maintain a speed of around about 25. Whatever I'm comfortable with. And for me, 25 is about where I'd want to be. So, we're going to keep an eye. Remember, we do not release this until we're at the bottom, until we're on the flat, or if we remove our dynamic brakes altogether and we're still losing speed, then you will release that, obviously. I'm aware that when I got driving there, I didn't use my bells and all that sort of thing. This tutorial was just about how to set up the brakes, how to do and use the brakes. And you can see at 79 and on dynamic brakes of 4, we are perfectly balanced here, and that's what we're looking for. We're looking for this perfect balance. So now if I remove one, just drop it down. Remember, little changes as well. Don't do big changes. Do very small, tiny sort of little changes to try and keep everything balanced. The only time I may do a big change is if I was whacking the dynamic brake right the way up, because we just hit a really steep bit or something. So now I can feel, you can kind of feel that we're building speed here, and we're building that momentum. So if this goes up to 26 now, I'm just going to pop this back up to 4. We are getting a bit steeper, and I would imagine all of our train is well and truly on the downhill by now. Yep. Okay, it's not all on the really steep gradient, but it is all on the downhill. There we go, we've gone up to 26. I want to keep that under control. I'm going to pull it back to 25 by just adding a notch of dynamic brake. And if it doesn't go down to 25 quick enough, or certainly if it went up to 27, I would add another notch. And it's just this. This is it all the way down. It's a long old ride because, well, you know, it's just a long way down. We're coming all the way along here, round here, and I assume we'll be bringing it all the way to the bottom. And we're coming past this bit. Oh, we are at 26, so I'm going to add another notch of dynamic brakes. Keeping a close eye on this now. Remember, oh there we go, we've dropped back down to 25. Remember, the closer you get to 30, and certainly if you go over 30, the less and less effect your dynamic brake will have. And you need to stay on top of that. There you go, I've dropped to 24, so I'm happy now to release that just by one at a time. So let me run you through that again. I know we've been through it a few times, but as this is a tutorial, I'm adding to my automatic brake up to about 25%, and I'm leaving that there. And as soon as these two numbers hit round about 79, 80's fine, 78's fine, what would happen in that, the more or less you add, find your number, find what works for you. I've seen people do it at much lower numbers than that. We are slowing down a bit, so I'm going to take off another notch of dynamic brake. What I want to look for is to find the perfect place where I'm at around about 4 or 5 on my dynamic brake. Preferably 3 or 4 would be your middle bit, so that I've got some that I can release to speed up and plenty that I can add if I'm speeding up too fast. That's what we need to watch, is if we are speeding up quickly, I want to be able to add 2 or 3 notches to the dynamic brake. And if I'm maxed out at dynamic brake of 7 or 8, I can't do that. There's no more I can add. You need to have plenty of extra you can add to slow yourself down when you need it. So yeah, we're adding this 25%ish, as you can see here, till these say 79. This number will shoot up to 20, 21, 22, something like that. And then you're pulling this one back to the bail off position. And you're bailing the cylinders off to 0. Okay? And then you're just using your dynamic brake like I am just now to speed up, to slow down. And that's it. That is all there is to this braking method. It's no more complicated than that. If you were coming up to a red signal, I would not use the dynamic brakes to stop. I would be using my automatic brakes, just like normal, your normal approach. I may use my dynamic brakes to slow down a little bit first. I'm just going to add 2 to that because I can see it's just jumped up to 27. Probably while I was talking there, I missed a couple of notches. Bring it back down to 25. So what I'm going to do with this video is I'm going to get past our point here, 4.3 miles, which actually isn't 4.3 or 4.2 miles, because I don't think we're... Oh no, we are actually... The annoying thing about Train Sim World is it does its distance as the crow flies. So the closest different distance between 2 points. So here was just as close as, say, here. All the time we're up here, we're not getting any closer to this. It is quite annoying for when you're trying to plan things out, is it? There we go. We've dropped to 24 now. I'm just going to pop that back to 4, get back up to 25. And this is it. It's a nice and easy brake system. I would love to know if this is actually how they do it in real life. Genuinely no idea. I would love to know if this is how it's done in real life. I'm hoping I wasn't too fast-paced with this video. I know I spoke very quickly at the top there and whilst I was doing it, because there was a lot of info to try and get across. Remember, make sure you hit that button, because part of the dynamic brakes is being added by that rear loco, by the one on the back end. That's part of our dynamic brake power. So if you haven't got this on, you're missing that power. We are now slowing, so I'm just going to drop this down to 2 actually. We have, our gradient has dropped dramatically, which is why of course we're slowing down. But do remember, even though our gradient was down for a bit there, the rest of the loco's still on the steep now. So you will see this go up fairly quickly. And also remember what I said about momentum. Even though I want to get back up to 25, I don't want to get back up to 25 too fast. If I let it go 22, 23, 24, 25, that momentum is just going to push through all the dynamic brake I can add. You've got to stop that build of momentum. We'll ride this out down to the pass, and then I think I'll call this video quits there, because this really was just done as a tutorial for the braking system, rather than me actually getting to the bottom of the pass. If anybody's still struggling out there with it, please feel free to ask me to finish it. And I'd quite happily do it, or I'd do it in one of the other logos. Quite gladly. Freight is fun, but it's not something I do a huge amount of. Mainly because of the slow-pacedness of it. It's a very slow-paced thing, but I do enjoy it. There we go, we're up to 26, so I'll just add another notch. Just keep that balance, keep it at 25. If it goes up to 27, which it just did, I'll add another notch. Remember, you're trying to stop that momentum. Don't wait and think, oh, it might fight back against it, which it is now. But if you wait and that momentum keeps building, you're in trouble. Actually, how heavy is this? Oof. Yeah, just over 6,000 tons, 76 cars. Wow, and the train is 1.2 miles long. That's what you've got to think about as well, is when the gradients are changing, even though your gradient is 2 here, the back of the train, 1.2 miles away, is on a completely different gradient. So it's important to remember what happened behind you. If you were on a really steep gradient and then it levels out to say 0.6 or less, you've got to remember that even though that is the case, 1 mile of your train is still on that really steep gradient, and that 1 mile of train is the train with all the weight in as well. Now, that said, I don't know how good the physics coding in Train Sim World 4 is for that sort of thing, but it seems good. It does seem to make a difference. I'd like to think that things like that were taken into account. We are losing speed here, so I'm just going to drop that again. This is all as we left it. This is still 25. We used that to bail out, and yeah, I mean, it really is this simple. I don't know if anybody that's watching this knows the name of this braking method. I would love to know what it is. I'm just going to drop this down to 2. I want to get this back up to 25 if I can. Now, our speed limit is about to go up to 35. Do not be tempted to go up to 35. Not until you get really, really comfortable with this braking method. When I'm doing this, do I? Yes, I do. Okay. And sometimes I need to add more here. So I'll drop this down to, say, 74 maybe, or something like that. Bail it out. Oh, excuse me. Yeah, drop that down to 74, bail it out, and then use my dynamic brakes again. But it's whatever you guys get comfortable with doing. It's that simple. But remember, if you go over 30, your dynamic brakes become far, far, far less effective. So you're going to need more and more automatic brake. Just keeping an eye on the speed here. Open up to 5. We are. A bit more of a gradient here. There we go. Once you know that momentum's been stopped, and say if you wanted to build up to, say, 30 mile an hour, you could drop it back again, you know, if you wanted to get closer and closer to the 30. That's what you do, is you do it a little bit at a time. Don't let that momentum build up. And again, 45 and even going up to 50, I'm not going to be doing that. I'm not going to be doing that because it's just... It's not for this tutorial. Do I do it when I'm driving down? Yes, I do. But again, like I said, I know how to add, and I know how to play about with it. I highly doubt that's how it's done in real life. Even if this is the braking method they use, I would imagine they stick to this and they stick under 30. And my recommendation to you, especially while you're learning, is to stick under 30. Honestly, I'd probably be sticking under 25. Or even 20. Stick round about 20. I'd love to know. I'd love to look into actually how it's done in real life, what their how it's done, what protocol is, what speed they're allowed to stay at, things like that. Not something I've ever taken the time to look into. How much further? 1.3 miles left. Now, interestingly, apparently we have a red light just after we go around the pass. Okay. Now, I've never come down the pass in any of the other timetabled runs I've done, I don't think I've ever done one where I've actually had to stop on the pass. So we will go to this red light and we will do this. It's going to be fun. So now I very much want to stay on top of my speed. Very much want to keep it where I want it, down at 26. And the closer and closer we get to this red light, closer to sort of 20 I want to be. And like I said, even though I may put the dynamic brakes up to 8 to slow myself down coming up to the red light, to ultimately stop, I will be applying the automatic brakes. It may be the case that once we pass this checkpoint, this turns green. Maybe. At least if I do stop at the red light, I get to show you doing it again, setting it up again. But I suppose that's the beauty of a YouTube video, isn't it? You can just rewind it and watch that bit again where we did it. Release this a little bit. I know I'm in control of the train here. I'm not worried in any way, shape or form. I know I can stop for this. We're not too far from our checkpoint. I have a sneaking feeling this probably will turn green. Kind of hoping it doesn't though. Kind of hoping it doesn't. So we can bring it to a stop and go through the whole process again of having to set up our brakes. Always watching that speed. Ah, there we go. It did turn green. I had a sneaking feeling it would. And now we've got 14 miles till we get down to here, to get down to the approach. It's a long old slog. Up to 28, I'm okay with that. But I remember what I said about momentum. Don't let that momentum build. Just whapping that right up now. Push that back. Gradient's gone up a bit. I want to see that drop. There it is. So I'll bring it back to 7. Back to 6. See what happens here. Right, we're going to leave it at that for this one. I hope you found it helpful. Anything else you want to see, just leave it in the comments. Thank you guys for watching. I don't see the point in riding this one out all the way to the bottom, so I'm going to leave this one there. And yeah, maybe in another video I'll do the full run, but as this was done as just a tutorial for the brakes, we're going to leave it there. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.